Thank you, Kate. So my name is Gregory Johnson, and I would like to welcome everybody that's joining us for this conversation. So what is Brigade 2.0? We like to think of it as not only just taking agency of your brigade, but taking agency of your civic tech organization in your local community. Today we have 4 people joining us. We have KC Digital Drive, Hack for LA, Code for South Florida, which is me, and BetaNYC, Kate. So just a quick rundown of how this agenda is going to go. We're going to do a brief introductions of who we are. We're then going to break it down into topical questions and discussions and give 10 minutes to each. We're going to talk about 4 topics today. The first is going to be around team and leadership of your brigade, funding and partnership, workforce and development, and then nonprofit structure. We're then going to open up some time at the end for Q&A, where we're going to take some questions from everybody here that's a part of this conversation. And we're going to spend a little bit of time answering those. We ask if you're asking a question and directing it at one of us in the group that you say our names and let us know who you're asking it to. That way they can properly answer. So where are we? This is a map of Code for America. There's a lot of chapters, as you all know. We're all in different places. Hack for LA is based in California, Code for South Florida is in Florida, BetaNYC in Kansas City Digital. But we're all different agencies. We're fiscally sponsored, or either our own nonprofit. So I'm going to now open it up to giving the panel some time to introduce yourself, starting from left to right. Kate, you want to kick it off?
Sure. Hi, I'm Kate Nicholson, and I am a member and staff member of BetaNYC based in New York City. BetaNYC started up as a meetup, turned into a brigade over the course of 2009, 2012, and has hired on staff and now operates in New York City as a civic tech organization that consults with government and provides services and works with community organizations here in New York City. Now I will hand it over to Bonnie.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Wolfe, Executive Director of Hack for LA. We're fiscally sponsored by Code for America. So we're a baby brigade compared to the progress that the other 2 brigades on the panel have, how far they've come.
My name is Deacon. I am the Managing Director for KC Digital Drive. We operate Code for KC as a program within our Civic Tech program portfolio. I started KC Digital Drive in 2012, working with our metropolitan planning organization. We had Code for America fellows in Kansas City, in both Kansas City, Kansas, and Missouri in 2013, and we worked with them to kind of get our brigade program going. And then we incorporated as a nonprofit in 2014, and sort of took formal program management duties over for Code for KC in 2014 and 15.
Hey everyone, my name is Gregory Johnson, Executive Director for Code for South Florida, formerly Code for Miami. We started as a meetup in 2013. We incorporated in 2016. Our brigade has also been a part of the Code for America fellowship process twice. One in its traditional model where fellows went out into different places, and then 2 as the community fellowship program in 2019. Code for South Florida has paid staff of about 7 people, and we focus on 3 counties here in Miami, Florida: Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach, which are the 3 most populous counties in the state of Florida. So what is Brigade 2.0? We've been meeting over the last couple of, I think it's been 6 or 9 months now between us as leaders, just to talk about various things. And the biggest thing is, how can we make more impact as a local civic tech organization in our community? How we've been doing that is through a few ways: sharing strategies and methodologies, deepening relationships, building local leadership and infrastructure, and talking about how we can learn by doing. So for a recap, if you're unfamiliar with the Code for America network, Code for America is national, but we as civic chapters have local tech ecosystems, and we believe that they need their own organizational structure and identity. Our purpose as a group in Brigade 2.0 is to give peer-to-peer support, share learning and effective practices, collaborate on program initiatives, and then compare the differences. We think through comparing and doing this, we can grow as our own individual entities and agencies. Over the last 10 months, here are some of the outcomes and results that we've had. Hack for LA has created their own local fellowship model. KC Digital Drive has learned from similar projects in another city. Code for South Florida has built its own independent funding model, and BetaNYC, through thought leadership, has looked through business model validation. So I want to now break it up into like the topical questions and discussions. We have each member on the panel that will be taking charge of each topic. We're going to start in team and leadership, funding and partnerships next, workforce development, and then nonprofit structure. So I'm going to kick it off with Kate, who's going to be leading the panel on nonprofit structure.
Sure. Yeah, so like Gregory said, we've all been meeting and talking, and there's a few different things that have come up, and one of them is our structure. So some of us are existing as entities under a nonprofit and are fiscally sponsored by that nonprofit. Bonnie, for instance, is looking at how to sort of get more fiscal sponsorship for Hack for LA. So as Brigades, we all operate under a 501c3 nonprofit, either Code for America or our own fiscal sponsor. And being fiscally sponsored is an important thing for us because it allows us to secure local contracts with governments in our municipalities. And it also allows us to raise public funds, like discretionary funds from council members or various funds throughout the city. So BetaNYC became a partner project of the Fund for the City of New York in 2015. And we did this because we wanted to secure contracts with community boards, Manhattan Borough President, and we wanted to also raise funds through the council's discretionary funds because we were beginning to see opportunities as we worked more and more with the city. We realized that we needed a way to work and secure contracts. So the questions, so let me just quickly go through the other brigades. So Code for Kansas City operates under Kansas City Digital Drive. Code for Miami operates under Code for South Florida. And Hack for LA currently operates solely under Code for America. So some questions I would like to ask my fellow comrades are, what is your nonprofit status and what's your business model and your fiscal structure? So where do you get your funding? What types of costs do you have? Who manages your finances and administrative work? So let's go first with Bonnie.
Our situation is pretty simple. We really don't have any money. I'm pretty much the sole funder of our brigade. I pay its hosting bill every month, which is now about $250. We have had some money in the past, some grant money, but we don't currently have that capacity on the team. So when we have potential funding opportunities, we run them through Code for America, who does not take any of the money. They pass through any donations that are made directly to us, and they end up in a fund that we can do reimbursements against.
Great. Now let's go over to Gregory. Oh, you're on mute.
So Code for South Florida is its own nonprofit entity, a 501c3. So the way we operate is we handle our own management, financials, administrations, and we pursue funding through getting our own grants. We have our own programs and initiatives that are based here, and then we use that to pay our staff, which then focus on either flagship projects or programs. The way our pillars of work go, it's civic engagement, digital transformation, and smart cities. We have a very strong relationship with the city of Miami as well as with the Miami-Dade County, and we leverage those relationships to work on projects together to demonstrate the Code for America model, which is, demonstrates our government service is so good it inspires change and help others do it themselves. Because we are a separate entity, we look for funders in our area and we make sure to let them know that we're a separate entity from Code for America. Because we're based in Miami, we have funders like Knight Foundation and a bunch of big funders that come out to us. So we use that structure to figure out if we can get funding opportunities and leverage those opportunities to work on projects. We have volunteers that work on specific projects or independent to themselves, like independent of us, but we don't typically manage the day-to-day of those. We just have our core projects and we get volunteers to kind of work on those with our paid staff.
Cool. And then Aaron, who has a slightly different founding story, how about you?
Yeah, so it's interesting. We just have been doing some structural work actually and revamped kind of how we position our program model. As part of that was doing some work looking at our finances. So we are independent 501c3. We did a look over our past 6 years and had a budget overall over a 6-year period of about $1.5 million. About 20% of that was from ticket sales. We put on an annual conference called the Gigabit City Summit from 2015 to 18. About 15% was local government and economic development funds. 29% was industry sponsorship and contributions for a variety of ways. And about 35% was from philanthropy and other nonprofit organizations. It varied significantly from year to year, which was part of the reason that we kind of were looking at like, okay, what's really sustainable and how do we model that better? And what we've come out of that with are kind of 3 program pillars. One of those is a solutions lab, which is kind of our main objective is, creating projects that match up technology and public and civic need. The second is community building. And the third is project delivery. And so we look at Code for KC within that. I mean, that is really kind of the public civic tech volunteer facing piece of that. That's one asset that we use. We also work with corporations and entrepreneurs and universities as kind of a resource partner. But our Code for KC Brigade, I mean, those 3 things I think will be familiar to any brigade, right? You're like identifying good project opportunities. You're sometimes actually building those out and delivering the projects. And then there's the piece of, Hack Night that is just really the community building piece so that you've got that resource in place. And so we've kind of revamped how we talk about our whole program portfolio to fit into those 3 program buckets.
Cool. So, and just so quickly, thank you all. BetaNYC operates in somewhat similar fashions to Code for South and KCD, Kansas City, where we secure grants to sort of fund our operational staff, and then we try to have revenue streams elsewhere with community board contracts, contracts with the Department of Education, and then we also raise discretionary funds to fund our sort of workforce development programming. So my next question is, what have been major turning points for your brigade? So in terms of structure, business model, financial status? It's like challenge, turning points. Let's start with Bonnie again, I think. Yeah.
Sure. There's been a couple of really interesting turning points. When I became captain of the brigade, we had a different fiscal sponsor than Code for America. And that fiscal sponsor was not being responsive to our needs and was actually hurting the process of applying for grants. So that was one of the reasons why we went back to Code for America to get a fresh start. And we've actually gotten quite a bit of help from Code for America in terms of reviewing the grants that we have submitted. We haven't gotten any yet, but we're working on building that practice. I think that process and then some leadership challenges that we've had over the past 9 months have really slowed us down a lot. And so now that we've kind of sorted all of that out and crossed our T's and dotted our I's, we're ready to build this practice, and that's why I love being part of this group, so I can hear from people who've gone ahead.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been really fun to hear your story and how you the challenges you're coming across and how you're solving them. Gregory, how about yourself and your brigade?
Sure. Well, I stepped into leadership in 2019 after closing a fellowship, but I've been a volunteer with Code for Miami, before it was known as Code for South, since about 2014. And when I took it over, we were in a place that I think a lot of brigades get into, which is the transition of leadership and being able to take the reins, for me, of an organization that, had so many things going on as a 501c3 nonprofit. I think definitely the limitations of the work that we're doing is early on, we had a bunch of grant opportunities, and we took some of these grant opportunities and we approached Code for America. And what we had to do and what we had to learn is there's just a difference between agencies. Code for America is its agency and its own entity. And as a nonprofit, while we're a partner of those, we also are our own agency. So some of the hurdles for me was understanding those distinctions and then understanding like how we needed to move to operate as an organization that had to be kind of self-independent and sustainable, but also respecting the relationship and what Code for America had to offer. So through Code for South Florida, we expanded regionally. We had some different touch points. We've been touching on a lot of what we call impact practices. And we've been getting a lot of local talent in our communities that has different perspectives, such as focusing on our D&I efforts, so diversity and inclusion, making sure we have women in leadership, making sure that we have different people that speak different languages, whether it's Spanish and Haitian Creole, to really just touch on our community. We think Code for South Florida is very unique in the case that we're in Miami and we're in the bridge of Latin America and the Caribbean. So through our civic tech work, we've been focusing on is those connection points. So some of the hurdles that we had to go through was that transition of leadership and having to mobilize and take an organization with 0 paid employees and get it to 7 paid staff in a matter of 6 to 8 months. And through this group, I've gotten a lot of good feedback, and through Kate and through Aaron and through Bonnie, learned ways that we can kind of like make sure that we're prepared to grow in the next 2 to 3 years to continue making an impact in our South Florida area.
Cool. Now we're going to go to Aaron.
Yeah, I think there were two kind of that I'll highlight. One is when we sort of absorbed the Code for KC work. It was maybe 2014 or 15, and it had dwindled down to maybe 3 or 4 people at Hack Night, and it was a lot of conversations, but not much work getting done. And there were some sort of like, big systems questions, and we had some city people there, but it just felt like it needed help. And I had hired my first additional staff around that time and told him, I don't remember how much, but it was like I had him dedicate, like 15 to 20% of his time basically to helping, to come up with some strategic goals for Code for KC and start growing that program, because it really fit with what we wanted to do. So that was really, successful. I think it helped our brigade grow and attracted more volunteers. And it was also a good example of what we represented as an organization, and kind of helped build out that program portfolio. And I'd say the other is kind of what we're going through now. And maybe I say now, it's been maybe the past year and a half, when we started to look back at our revenue mix, we had a lot of our revenue was event-based. And you can make money at conferences, selling sponsorships and tickets. And then we had a lot of our revenue that was project-based, where we were sort of serving as consultants. But the irony is, like, neither of those things are really what we want to be. Like, if I wanted to be a consultant, I would go out and start a consultancy. And if same with event planning. So, and I think this is probably true. This is similar to the story for Code for America National too. You want to be that sort of civic tech backbone capacity, and you want people to understand the value of what that capacity is and how it works. But people don't want to fund that as much. It's easy for them. For corporations, it's a lot easier for them to write an event sponsorship check than it is to fund the kind of work that we do, even though I think there's a way to position it where they would get a lot more value for the same money, but there's just not a line item for it. So, and philanthropy too, like they don't like to fund technology. A lot of the hardcore, sort of social service philanthropies here that benefit from the work we do and that love the work that we do, but they're like, oh, but that's tech, we don't get it. So we're having to kind of restructure and retell the story, I think, in a way so that we are known for and can raise the funds to really do that capacity piece.
Yeah.
And just a note of time, we're at the 1 minute mark, so maybe you have Kate and then we wrap up.
Yeah. I was going to stop there and just say, if you have follow-up questions on this topic, put them in the chat. We'll collect them, and in future meetings that are open to you all, we will raise these questions. And I will skip telling BetaNYC's sort of thing, but basically big pivotal moments were becoming a partner project of the Fund for the City of New York, and also our relationship and sort of office space within the Manhattan Borough President's Office, which allowed us to work directly with government and help us tell our story and secure grant funding by telling our story in a very succinct way. So let us move on to the next topic. Thanks, everyone.
Hi. So I just want to say something about time before we get any further. We have 3 more sections. If we did 10 minutes for each, we would be at the top of the hour, and then there wouldn't be no time for Q&A. So I'm going to ask you some questions and please make your answers as short and succinct as possible so we can go to people's Q&As, because we'll have to do this each of the slides in like 5 minutes so that we have time for that Q&A. So what are the different team structures? Let's start with Aaron. How many people are in your leadership team? Is there a chief executive? Just give us some brief details.
So we've got a board as an organization. We've got 6 people on our board of directors, but for Code for KC, we have a volunteer leadership team. We have a volunteer brigade captain, Paul Barham, who a lot of you probably know, and then 6 or 7 people on our core team that kind of guide direction of that volunteer effort in particular.
Great. How about you, Gregory?
So we have a 3-person board, and then in terms of leadership, we have an executive director and then 2 program managers, soon to be 3, that cover each kind of county. And then underneath them, we have program associates and then dev relations folk. So in total, we have about 7 staff, but everybody's paid either part-time, contractually as full-time. What we found is like making sure that we had paid people, made sure that projects were going in the right direction. And it also helped us with momentum in terms of impact. When we just used volunteer-based, the projects weren't kind of like hitting in the way that we wanted it to. So that's why our structure changed. And so far in the last 10 months, we've seen growth.
And Kate, how about your structure at BetaNYC?
So we have 4 members on staff, an executive director, 2 directors, and a teaching assistant slash, Z's in here, I think. And then we have 5 apprentices. 2 are on our team directly, and 3 are placed within community boards throughout the city. And then we have, throughout the school year, 9 to 12 civic innovation fellows. Fellows and apprentices are all paid. And then we have a leadership team of 4.
Okay, and for Hack for LA, there's 1 captain. I act as the executive director, and we are in the process of restructuring our leadership to accommodate more of how LA operates, where people basically do a very focused, intense effort over a short period of time. But we've added a director of marketing, and that's what we'll be doing right now, is adding directors at that level of the organization, with more structure to come. And we have a board of advisors, but we haven't been utilizing them lately. So my next question is, how is experience important to leadership in the areas of like operations, public policy, people management? Gregory, you want to start?
Yeah, so you need the right people in place, or else your civic tech organization will die. It won't thrive. And if you look at the network today, a lot of organizations that don't live on, it's because there wasn't somebody put in place that understand operations or leadership. And that's very important to any organization. And you could look at Code for America's 10-year of growth and where it is to this point under Jen Polka and many other great leaders of where it stood today. So in my view, you need somebody that has experience seeing organizations grow, either from a startup background or a background of managing teams, because that's how you can put in place a strong foundation and unlock all the opportunities that you see today. I think LA, Kansas City, even LA and Miami, there's a lot of funders in that area, and you can easily raise lots of cash if you have the right leadership in place and the right team in place so you can execute on those things. So strategy is, so one thing that we have here at Miami is like, strategies are what like newbies talk about. It's all about how do you execute and implement. That's when you're kind of like in that good space. So that's my thoughts.
Okay, how about you, Kate?
Yeah, so I haven't been directly involved in the hiring of our staff. So I was hired, I was the 3rd hire, Z was the 4th. And I would say the team is everything. Noel found me because I was working on a civic tech project and we kept bumping into each other, and we really got along. And then I started going to BetaNYC's events, and then an opportunity opened up. Z was working alongside us in the Manhattan Borough President's office, and we knew that he had knowledge in the spheres that we were working in. He was really interested in data, was really great at data, and so we brought him on. And then Emily was working in sort of academic worlds. A really important piece, I think, to our structure is that we have these civic innovation fellows who go through a year-long training program with us, working on projects in the real world with us, and they learn our processes. And that is the most important thing for us, is to make sure people understand the processes. So then we're able to hire them into apprentice roles and hopefully future staff members. And so that for us is a very important thing. Experience doesn't necessarily always equate to greatness on a team for me personally, I think. So breadth of experience and interest and process, quickly adapting to process, is really important.
And Aaron, how about you?
I will address, Jess just asked a great question in chat about whether there's a tension between balancing paid staff with volunteer contributions. That's something I think about a lot, and I don't know that I've got a great answer. I mean, no, not really yet, but I always worry about that, because I think a lot of the way that we work, so we've got one other full-time staff who is on, today's his first day, Jim Starsiv, I will shout out, I think he is on listening to this. And we've got a couple part-time staff that are paid. And then we have a lot of people, maybe 4 or 5 like Paul, who donate a lot of their time to the work, and so aren't paid staff, but are, work on the project like staff. And we address the volunteer question in a couple ways. I mean, they're all mission-driven people. Some people are in a position where they want to give back. Part of our method is finding people who are in a position to do that. And then we also do find ways, sometimes through grants or project work, to fund even some of our volunteers when sort of the level of work raises to a level where it kind of competes with what they do for their income. I don't think I can say we have a system for that. I mean, it's all still sort of like by feel, which maybe isn't great. I don't know. It's worked out so far, but that's kind of how our staffing works. And then we've got lots of partner organizations just throughout the community that also devote time to the projects that we work on.
Yeah.
I think we're going to wrap it up and move on to the next section, which is funding and partnership. And we just know that you have so many questions. We get together every 2 weeks and we talk for about an hour. So I think after this, we'll be maybe spending one session, per 2 weeks on one of these topics, so that we can go deep dive. So even if we don't get to all your Q&As today, just know that we're available and happy to continue the conversation. Next person is.
So the next person is me. So I'm going to talk about funding and partnerships. This is super dear and near to my heart as somebody that's worked in a role with a big tech company that funds nonprofits and organizations in the tech for social impact space. I'm going to start with 2 questions and hopefully we can get some brief answers, but I'll kick it off first to Aaron. So do you operate off of projects or relationships?
Yeah, that's good. It is definitely more relationship based. I mean, we could not do anything that we do if people didn't trust us and have good working relationships with the people that we enter into projects with. And a lot of the times, I mean, we do a lot of project work, but how we allocate the work within those, it's kind of a follow-up on that paid question. Like it works because we know the people and we've got the relationships and people are comfortable entering into a project with some ambiguity about how it's going to get funded and how the work's going to get done and whether there's going to be any resources available.
Thanks, Aaron. Kate.
So we operate, we have funding for salaries of staff, and then we gain our projects through relationships, through partnerships. Then, so it's a process of being in relationship with different entities, understanding their needs, and then responding with projects. Then that gives us momentum to further develop other projects and programs from that. But it starts with relationships for us.
Connie?
We are all about the projects, because when I joined Hack for LA, there had been some good work in the past, but nothing had ever graduated to the level of anything that somebody would want to fund. So we set about making relationships, strategic relationships with partners. We now have 4 different projects with the City of Los Angeles. We have projects with important and effective nonprofits, as well as some very strong community projects. And so that has been establishing reputation and making those relationships so that we can prove that our value in the space needed to come before we went and looked for funding. Because every time we put together any materials for funders, it was always like, what's your evidence that you can do what you say that you can?
Thanks, Bonnie. For us at Code for South Florida, we definitely lean towards the projects. We leverage the business model of policy innovation, and we use this like relationship of how Code for America started, right? It's through fellowships that created these projects, and then they went out and found evidence of like people that would want to support it. So for us, even though we have relationships, we start with projects. We start on a specific focus area, taking kind of like this policy operation and just breaking it down. We work on that, and typically funders or people come to us. And that's also because our projects are kind of unique. It's like smart cities. It's like who's doing a project on surveillance now, or who's doing a project on how do you help people and residents understand their budget and how to make more informed decisions. It's kind of like these are things that pop up, that once they do pop up, government's like, we want to be on top of that. So that's the approach that we've been taking. And so far it's been successful in some of our flagship projects that have received the most funding.
I will say we started with projects, then relationships. It's a mix.
So my next question is, how do you track and record outcomes? And this is as a nonprofit, a big thing, right? It's like, okay, what are the impacts, or what's the outcomes that you've had, and why should we continue funding you? What's the sustainable strategy? I'd love to kick the can to Aaron first.
Very poorly is how we track outcomes. It has been on my roadmap to do an annual report for the past 3 years, and we just haven't gotten to it. And part of that, we haven't gotten a ton of grant funding. We've got a couple now that just builds that into the grant process, which is kind of nice because it makes you, at least you've got a report towards your grant outcomes. But that's part of our roadmap, I think, is to get better at the systems piece of recording those outcomes.
I'd like to kick it over to Bonnie now.
We've started using OKRs. I can't say that we've had any success yet because we've not shown them to any funders, but our plan is basically to both measure, set goals and measure them on every single project, and then also to start doing actual measurement of the volunteer labor itself, and we can talk more about that during the workforce development side. But that's a key component for us, is actually measuring the number of hours and technical impact that go into creating these community resources. I will say the one thing that we have been able to measure, and this is kind of a guiding light for us, is like when someone wants to start a new project in Hack for LA, we're like, you have to tell us exactly what you think you're going to achieve. So for instance, Food Oasis, which was a project that had been dormant and we'd kind of given it away before I joined and I got it back. The largest number of food pantries in the county of Los Angeles listed on any website, including 211, which is paid for by the county and is a for-profit entity. The largest list was like 85 food pantries for a county of 10.1 million people. And we went live with a new validated list of food pantries of over 350 on our way to probably 1,000. And we were able to do that with volunteer staff, but that's the kind of numbers that we want to be able to tell funders.
One thing I might add too, I think it's different for the organization than for the project. Like a project, like Clear My Record, we can say we've processed so many expungements, or we've, helped so many people, or helped so many people get jobs. But like if you put that together with, an internet access project, it's hard to keep it from just looking like a whole bunch of different good stuff that you've made happen. And like, you need to start thinking about like a number of partnerships or number of events, kind of the more activity metrics that represent that core capacity, but that people don't, want to fund as much. So that's kind of where another place that I think is interesting to think about how your project objectives and measurements differ from your total organizational program.
Kate.
Yeah, I love impact stuff, and Code for America I know does have an impact sort of model. I will say I think it's very sort of organic depending on what you're doing. But I love what you've both mentioned about sort of like having a hypothesis. Like, we're all doing science by doing projects. Whenever you're putting a project out there, you should have some sort of expectation of that project and be able to like track it. So whatever it is that we're doing, I think something that's really helped us is, when we have to write a grant or something, we have to sort of define exactly how we're going to be measuring outcomes, what the metrics are. And one thing that helped us was doing a sort of performance and work review. I forget exactly what it's called, but our core team got together and sort of said, this is all the things that I'm responsible for and what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. This is like the intended impact or how it relates to our overall like mission and our objectives. And these are like the metrics by which I would like you to hold me accountable. So kind of like our own self like performance review process. We haven't like updated it, but it has been useful to look back on when writing grants and things, because then we're like, oh, this is how we're tracking things. And then for grants, we do have to report. So we have tons of, not tons, we're trying to condense it down, but tons of sheets, Google Sheets. I track some stuff in Airtable, like events. I track whatever I can track. I track it because I want to be able to communicate numbers when we're doing presentations to people that could partner or fund us.
Thanks. To piggyback on that, in the sake of time, we also take the same approach as Kate. Like, I love to track everything. We do have 2 new buckets of work. Like, we love the North Star model that Code for America champions, and early on I was one of the guinea pigs for the impact cascade. But under new buckets of work like digital transformation of smart cities, we think, how do you track the impact of those? Those are still to be like discussed and just figured out with the cities. So those are things that we're constantly kind of iterating on. But for funders, we do have like traditional metrics of like impact, like, okay, what's our North Star? How many people did we help or reach out to? And what's the depth of that? Like, it's the difference between helping somebody through an event versus helping somebody get access to food stamps or get their tax return. So the impact that leads to. So we only have a little bit of time left. I'm going to kick over the can to Aaron for workforce development, and maybe you can do one question on that. And like in a different conversation, maybe you do like a ongoing thing like Bonnie mentioned, to where we can bring other people that can ask more questions, and we can take more time on each section.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Let's keep this kind of quick. I think in terms of Code for America, we think of workforce development in a couple ways. I mean, there's a big move to like cultivate the talent pipeline for city government jobs, and then there's also the idea of just helping people get the skills and the training and develop portfolio projects and things that they need to get any kind of tech job. And I think the question to y'all is, which of those kind of fits into your process, and how have you found that connected to funding opportunities? Gregory.
So this is big. Like in Miami, like funders, they just love this whole talent thing. In 2018, Code for America did some workforce development work where they looked at 12 different states, and they created this whole giant, like huge thing of like mapping different connections to workforce. And it's a very complicated process, but funders don't think it is. It's just like, create this and help connect local talent to jobs. So we've had people directly say, we are interested in like workforce development. While that's not our main priority, we do recognize there's some organic things there. Like BetaNYC does a fellowship, and we worked closely with colleges to introduce students to public interest technology as well, where they get paid for their time. The way we look at it is just kind of like adding that to the layers of metrics that we look at when we bring volunteers onto a project. And we think that also helps with attention too. Somebody asked about like paid versus non-paid staff. For the paid staff, when you have people in operational roles or organizational roles that can help people that are volunteers and contributors, they really like that. You can see the good example of Code for America. So we kind of leverage that to steward these groups of people to work on projects, and then leverage these opportunities to see if we can introduce them to people that can give them jobs, or assessing what skills that they learn through that process.
Bonnie, how does workforce development fit into your program model that you guys are working on building out?
Yeah, I would say that in every onboarding, we're 50% projects with 50% people, which means that we put a full 50% of all the organizational efforts we're doing into growing our people. So what we mean by that is I want to know every single person's skill set and that they want to practice, because people have skill sets they don't want to practice, but they'll easily get shunted into those roles if you ask them, what can you do for me? So what is it that you want to practice? What area do you want to grow? And I asked them to think of enlightened self-interest as a really positive thing. I want them to tell me exactly how they want to get paid, right? They want to get paid by, I've been doing this role at work, but I can't get a promotion. So put me in that role here on a project and I get to put it on my resume and be able to talk effectively to employers about doing it. Or I don't know how to do this well, and I want to be paired with somebody else in a mentoring relationship that does know how to do it well. And sometimes those relationships end up being co-mentoring relationships because the person mentoring doesn't have a skill that the other person has. We get a lot of UI, UX people who end up cross-pollinating. Our entire organization is structured under peer mentorship. We don't run any classes. Sometimes there will be a class, a single kind of experienced person will lead, but it's always in the course of doing something. So for instance, we needed to scrape 50 Secretary of State websites. So we taught a class in scraping to our data scientists so that they could do data scraping using the information from the class. So we really are focused on getting the job done, and people come out of that with a sense of that they're going to be able to achieve what they want to in their careers. That's why people are volunteering. Now, the organizational level stuff is a whole nother ball of wax. There's very few people that are coming for that, but I will say that through new recruitment methodologies that we've been using, including posting on LinkedIn and other places, we've been able to get some higher level volunteers who are interested in helping us do capacity building. Like for instance, our new director of marketing, who is the global communications and marketing director for Tinder, Philip Fry, and he is helping us he's not doing our marketing, he's helping us build a marketing practice where each project will have a marketing coordinator who might be somebody very new to the field, and that person will report to a marketing manager who's been a marketing coordinator in their job or their life, and then and is ready to rise to the level of managing other people, and so on, so that everybody gets the experience that they want. And we take somebody with a deep experience and skill set and build the tools and processes and practices that will make the whole organization successful.
And Kate, we'll wrap this up with you and give you kind of two audiences. So how do you frame workforce development to the people that you sort of recruit to work with you? You know, is that pitched as a benefit of working with BetaNYC? And then from a funder perspective, you know, is it part of the outcome benefits that your funders are interested in?
Yeah, I would say right now it's definitely workforce development is something that people are very interested in. So BetaNYC has partnered with the City of New York's university sort of program. So CUNY runs a service corps program, and our workforce development program, Civic Innovations Fellows, is run out of the Manhattan Borough President's Office. And we took over running it after its first year and have been doing it for the past 6 years. Z and Emily run it, and it is it's a critical component. I think workforce development is part of our mission. So we do it with the fellows, but we also do it with community board members, with our Train the Trainers program that we run with the library system here, where we're teaching open data curriculum that we developed for our fellows, and we're taking it and passing it on to the public. How we communicate it is, you know, their civic tech is this field that it exists, but you know, there's not like titles specifically for civic tech in government, but you're seeing it everywhere. And so people need these 21st century skill sets that civic analysts, sometimes we call it, have. And whether or not there's a job title, there's definitely a need for it. And so communicating that through stories, through examples of projects that we've worked on, through having our fellows present to stakeholders. We, you know, have our Z and Emily have a presentation every semester where their fellows, you know, who come from all different backgrounds, they're university students, are presenting demographic analysis of community boards to see if they represent the diversity of their communities, for instance. And they're presenting this to Manhattan Borough President office staff, who then sort of go back and are saying like, oh wow, like these skill sets are really useful. And with their sort of credibility or their support, we're able to then sort of continue communicating that message of it's really important that people going forward in the government and in nonprofits have these sort of data and civic analyst skill sets.
Awesome. So we've got 4 minutes left in our session, and I was starting to go back through the chat. Some of those we've answered. So if anyone, I'd say, unless anybody else has a better way to do this, if you've got another question, go ahead and type it into the chat, and we'll take as many of them as we can in the time that we've got left, even if it means repeating something that you've already asked if we haven't answered it yet.
And please tell me what the questions are. I can't see them, so.
Yeah.
Let me go back through, or you can just ask too. I don't know if everybody has.
What kind of consistency or decision making needed to be in place for more formalized structure for you all? What do you need? What do you wish you had prepared for? And where are you looking for grants?
Ooh, a lot to unpack there.
A lot of our grant looking is local foundations that are looking to solve problems here in Kansas City. I think the consistency question is a good one, and I'd be curious to hear everybody's answer on that. In our case, because our brigade was so small and we had already put a structure in place, like we didn't have a whole bunch of people that we needed to canvass to say, hey, do we enter into this relationship? We just had one and we're like, yeah, okay, let's do this. It makes sense. But if you're, a volunteer leadership team of 5 or 6 or 7 or more, have you guys had a challenge with how you kind of say like, yes, we need to become an org?
Would Code for America consider setting up a Code for America account with Foundation Center so individual brigades can do more in-depth grant research and find opportunities? Probably not a question for us, but maybe Bonnie has some insight. Ooh, there was a ping in.
Yeah, I would say that it's not so much about knowing where to apply for grants, because we've applied for several and not gotten any. So to me, that says we don't have the right story. We need coaching around how to apply for grants rather than just the blind applying, especially since most places won't give you any feedback at all. They'll just say, we're so busy, we can't give you any feedback. And the people that I've talked to that have gotten grants, it's because they have a relationship, an ongoing dialogue with the funder, and the funder is coaching you through the process. So making those relationships, I would ask, that Code for America help us make those relationships, rather than just giving us a database to access.
To touch on that question too, as somebody that worked on the Microsoft Philanthropies team, like a lot of things that people don't understand is like when you're applying for grants, and if you're like, let me go in and just use Code for America, is like when you apply for grants and you're Code for X, what grant people see is Code for X. Okay, this is Code for America. So that can skew or even harm your chances of getting that grant if you don't have that relationship. And a lot of people don't understand that. It's like, okay, if it's $1 million grant and you're trying to get it for your local community, like who are they going to give it to? Like a small organization that doesn't have a track record, or a large organization that has a track record and paid staff? Code for America has a whole development team. It's going to be very difficult. That's why you need to start with relationships. Figure out the people in your community that care about that geography, find them, talk with them, let them know that this is different from what Code for America is doing. And that's the best way to get grants. Either that, or you're going to be in a bounty place where it's like applying. Why am I not getting it? It's like they're not seeing the difference between you and the entity that's standing next to you, which isn't bad. It's just to make sure that is very clear.
Yeah, and then in terms of the grant writing, you have to also, have the pieces ready to put in the puzzle. You need to make sure that, if you've already been managing money and you can show a track record of how you've been managing it and how you have staff sort of rolling through or volunteers rolling through and saying how there's a need, to pay volunteers for this work that they're doing, that's incredible and has this obvious impact. Being able to tell that story in a very succinct way, and also making that a goal of yours to take money and start, like if you're able to raise money, or even if it's fake, like a fake process for fake money or something, like showing that you can do this and that you're going to use the money very effectively, and communicating that to them, and not sort of trying to say that you're going to take over an ocean when you can do one thing really well.
So we're at time. I want to thank everybody for joining, including our speakers and panelists. If you want to join us in this conversation, you can go to #Brigade 2.0. I hope each of you take, at least from this conversation, that it's time to take agency of your civic tech organization. If you're a leader in your community and you're doing amazing work, it's maybe time to say, let me step up and create my own nonprofit. Let me step up and find funders to help me in our organization, especially if you've been doing it for years like us. And hopefully this is inspiration to continue doing that. We're only a Slack message away, so if you want to find us through there, reach out.